Ryan with Miss.Geek here, and we're just going to do a quick video. I'm way behind on projects, and but to move forward with my current project, I need an Arduino and a few other things. So I was looking at Arduinos online, and they all come they come in a couple different forms. I've got the Arduino Nano here, and there's some that come with the header pins soldered in, and with this header also soldered in here. And there's some that come as a kit, as mine is. And the ones that are soldered cost just a little bit more, so I always buy the cheaper one. But it occurred to me that there are many people out there who buy the more expensive kit because the idea of soldering their header pins on might be a little daunting. Maybe they're doing everything on a breadboard. And so I was going to show you how I solder these. So the first thing I do is I grab my breadboard and I put the pins in. And I put the Arduino down on the pins. And I think I messed up the spacing there. Do that differently. And I don't push the pins in all the way. I don't worry about that. So let's get these lined up here. And I messed it up again. It's okay. Messing up is fine. There we go. And we're just going to get the pins lined up, and there they are. And now I'm going to go ahead and push them all the way down, just for convenience. And now they're on here. Now, the soldering, this is the easy part. And soldering is easy too, but there are a couple things to be careful of. One, you don't want your soldering iron too cold. You want it nice and hot. Now, I've got this adjustable digital soldering iron. It says it's at 458 Celsius. And there's no reason it's 458. It's just a temperature that generally works for me. And when I touch solder to it, it should immediately melt. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just touch the solder tip to one of these pins and melt solder to it. Done. I'm going to go do that on the other end. And then I'm going to go to the other side and do the same. So I'm starting with the four corners. And I'm even pushing down just a little bit to make sure that the header is fully seated. We don't need a lot of room there. So I might even just press a little harder. There we go. You can see it moved just a smidge there. So it should be fully seated, as you can see. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go down along the line and solder these. But we're not going to put all the heat in one place. What we're going to do is we're going to go here and solder. And then go here and solder. And then here. And I'm going to go ahead and get my magnifier in here so I can see a little bit better. And I'll bring you with me here. And don't worry about having a whole roll of solder. I just pick up I just basically cut off a little bit of solder to use at a time so that it's nice and manageable. Let me get my magnifier straightened out here so I can actually see it too. And if I don't get these solders exactly right, I can go touch them up later, so it's not that big of a deal. Not worried about perfection, just getting a mechanical bond. And with the mechanical bond comes the electrical bond, so they're one and the same. Cool. And now this side's done. And I'm just going to go warm a couple of these up, make sure they're good. And you'll notice I didn't use a lot of solder on each one. And we don't really need very much. We don't want too much because you don't want to bridge from one pin to the next. So just warm it up, get some solder on there, and do the next. I'm just going to reposition this a little bit so it's easier for me to use. And the reason we're going back and forth, left to right, is so that we're not heating the board up too much in any one spot. Now we're letting the other side cool. Now we'll let that side cool. go back and forth. You put too much heat in one spot, you can actually damage the board, and there's no need for that. Now, when I said you don't want to put your soldering iron too cold, the reason for that is the colder your soldering iron is, the longer it takes to heat up the board. And the board is basically a heat sink. It doesn't want to get hot. It wants to cool down. This board substrate is fiberglass. And fiberglass is not a great conductor of heat, but it will try. So if I'm sitting there and holding this to the board, the whole board's getting hot. And so what I'm doing is I'm not heating up the soldering spot. I'm heating up everything. So the trick is to keep the heat up. And with the heat higher up, you're quickly heating this one spot, applying your solder, and then moving on to the next. And the whole area actually, this one section gets hotter, but the whole area stays cooler because you're only heating that one spot. So that's it. Now our Arduino is done. If I really want to, I can solder in this piece. And it's really the same principle here if I want to solder that in. And I'm not going to, but I'll show you how I would do it. So first off, you're going to pull the Arduino away from the breadboard, which takes a bit of force. There we go. And then I would just put this in here and put it down, and you know the rest. Simple as that. So I don't actually use these headers, so I'm not going to install that. But there it is. I saved $2 and spent a few cents, maybe even less, in solder. About that much solder, probably, a few inches of solder, and it's done. Now it's ready for programming and installation in my project. That's it. So I know this is really basic and elementary, but we all have to start somewhere, and this is a great way, because if you're going to use Arduino, you need a breadboard. You may as well use the breadboard to build, to install the pins, and now you're gaining a skill. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. 73.